Close your eyes and hear the fire crackle beneath the endless Great Plains sky. A cast-iron pot sizzles. The air smells like hot fat, vinegar, and ginger, a scent that teases the nose and tugs at curiosity. The wagon creaks, the stars wink, and someone stirs a soup that looks ordinary, until they lift from the pot a careful strip of white meat. Rattlesnake. Beside it, a loaf rises without yeast, fed by a warm starter of cornmeal and milk, perfuming the camp with a strong, cheesy aroma. On the makeshift table, a sunny yellow pie pretends to be lemon but is made with vinegar. And there's more. Coffee without coffee, roasted from roots, and a fried appetizer Cowboys never explain before the first bite. Prairie oysters. If you love true stories of the American frontier and dishes that test courage and ingenuity, buckle up and come along. Before the trail swallows us whole, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next tales that smell like smoke, adventure, and seasoning. Now step softly into the tall grass. Supper's ready. The first night I camped with the wagon train, somewhere between Independence and the horizon, I learned to listen to food before tasting it. Nora, the camp cook, was slight, sharp-eyed, and steady-handed. With a shovel, she drew a ring of embers, blew softly, and spread a batter of cornmeal and salt onto a cabbage leaf that somehow didn't burn. "Ash cake," she said, flipping the leaf right at the fire's edge. Simple, sturdy, and with a ribbon of molasses on top, it felt like a celebration, not out of luxury, but out of having survived a whole afternoon of wind and dust. You bite, feel the whisper-fine grit of ash on the crust and the soft middle holding firm, and you understand. Pioneers didn't eat to show off, they ate to go on. To trick thirst, a stoneware jug made the rounds with something that looked like well water but had a mysterious glint. Switchel, the haymaker's punch. Water, a thread of apple cider vinegar, grated ginger, a spoon of molasses. The first sip puzzles your palate, the second wakes your body, the third becomes habit. That bright little drink was the electrolyte of the frontier. "If your great-granddaddy mowed hay in July, this is what brought him back," said a white-bearded man, wiping his lips with the back of his hand. If living memories like this captivate you, remember to subscribe and share this video with someone who loves American history. We drink from the past here to quench the present. On the second night, the trapper Eli arrived with creek-wet boots and a grin only hunters of silence understand. He set a board by the coals and laid something on it that began to crackle like a fuse. Beaver tail. Its skin gave off a scent I can only call a duet of bacon and lake. "Noble gelatin," he murmured as the fat dripped and made the fire sing. When he served it, the skin was a glassy crisp, and beneath it a tender richness, like a delicate pork rind with the memory of cold water. It's not banquet food. It's a banquet for the cautious heart, and with coarse salt and nerve, I learned that at the world's edge even your aversions train themselves to recognize sustenance. With respect, I met the trail's oldest wisdom in a rawhide pouch tied with thongs, packed with dark, gleaming blocks. Pemmican. Learned from the plains peoples, it was made from dried, pounded bison meat bound with rendered fat and, when possible, dried berries. Strong, portable, nourishing. No road was long enough to defeat it. They taught me flavor isn't spectacle, it's memory, of hunts, of winter, of community, and when someone shares a piece, they're sharing the weight of their own life. That ass when I grasped how much pioneers owed to those who had known the land for centuries. The day we crossed a branding yard, the air held bawling calves and the mineral scent of hot iron. That's where I saw the most misunderstood dish in America, prairie oysters. After the work, a broad-shouldered, old-timer, Big Henry, dropped pale, breaded slices into a deep singing skillet and fried them golden. He served them with salt, pepper, and a lemon somebody had smuggled all the way from St. Louis. "Eat first, I'll explain later," he said. The bite was tender, almost creamy, tasting a bit like mild liver and chicken at once. The reveal came after the second piece, bull testicles. The camp went quiet, with smothered laughter and sideways pride. Would you try it? Tell me in the comments which of these dishes you'd dare, and which you'd pass. In New Mexico, the sun drops fast like it won't argue. Someone killed a rattler slithering across the trail. The cook of the day, a Texan with thunderous eyebrows, handled the snake with a calm that chilled me. He skinned it, simmered out the hair-fine bones, chopped the white meat, and stewed it with onion, chile, and a light herb broth. Rattlesnake stew, he presented, the voice of someone who'd needed it more than once. The taste? Delicate, surprisingly, like chicken with a whisper of earth. I'm not telling anyone to go wild improvising with dangerous animals. Risk abounds. But there, in that moment, it was less foodie dare and more proof that staying alive at the frontier demanded a measured blend of skill, prudence, and boldness. It was in a Nebraska sod house that I witnessed the miracle of absence. Anna, newly married, had promised her husband a Sunday pie. There were no lemons, no apples. She glanced at her hoarded sugar, cracked 2 eggs, melted a thumb of butter, and added a shot of vinegar. A grating of nutmeg, a rough crust, and soon the kitchen was perfumed with pretend summer, vinegar pie. A gentle acidity tricked the tongue with the memory of a fruit that wasn't there. The husband ate 2 slices and cried, not for the pie, but for everything it said without words. I promised you something sweet, and here it is. If that scene surprised you, do me a favor. Send this video to someone who loves pastry and grit, and drop a like. Stories like this deserve a crowded table. By the Missouri, I met Samuel, who swore his bread had a name and a mood. Salt-rising bread, he explained, showing a warm jar wrapped in cloth. No yeast, just a starter of cornmeal, hot milk, and patience's lullaby. By morning, the dough had puffed like light breath, and the smell, oh, the smell, almost like an aged cheese. Baked in the Dutch oven, it rose dense and tender, with a faint tartness and a strange bouquet that I swear brought the sky closer. Samuel called it stubborn bread. It didn't always work, but when it did, it fed both body and pride. When coffee ran out, and it always did, improvisation shone. Dandelion roots, roasted like a secret suntan, were ground to powder, sometimes blended with chicory or barley. With hot water, the cup turned dark and toasty, waking you less with caffeine than with ritual. On cold nights, someone clipped pine needles and brewed a green citrusy tea that revived the spirit, and, unbeknownst to them, vitamin C. The cups passed hand to hand like small campfires. Everyone laughed when someone asked, "Coffee tonight?" And the reply came, "Sure, just not coffee." In the Sierra Nevada, I met Sourdough Sam, the miner who carried a jar of living starter in his inner pocket. That culture had wandered from hand to hand like a family heirloom. Tall pancakes, sturdy loaves, fritters that didn't flop in the cold. But in California, I also learned from a Miwok elder how to make acorn flour, gather, pound, leach the bitterness with river water again and again, then cook into a porridge or bake into small breads. The pioneers learned, gave thanks, and ate. Because the forest isn't enemy or supermarket, it's a teacher. Missouri and Kentucky had their own signal for community. Burgoo, a bubbling kettle large enough to swallow a story. In went whatever the day spared. Squirrel, rabbit, venison, corn, beans, scraps of salt pork, scraps of nerve. Some swore by a creamy gravy made from brains and odd bits. Others smoked raccoon like they were smoking a tail. Nothing was wasted. Virtue didn't lie in what animal you caught, but in absolute thrift. And yes, noses turned up now and then, but no one went to bed hungry. In the saloon, between spit in the corners and dog-eared cards, a glass jar glowed on the counter with eggs steeping in a crimson sea of vinegar and spice. Pickled eggs, a sharp, bracing snack, good for breaking a bender and reminding your body there were still rules, sort of. If beets were handy, the jar became a window display. Eggs turning pink, brave men wanting one just to show color. Nearby shelves held cucumbers, okra, green peaches, all guarded by brine and thyme. It was the frontier's refrigerator, transparent and patient. The creative mind also pulled off stage tricks. Mock turtle soup, made from a calf's head and the right seasonings, imitated a luxury the trail could never afford. Apple pie without apples, cobbling crackers and spice to mimic a holiday memory. And when molasses was plenty, the Pennsylvania Dutch chouflée pie traveled in recollection to a wagon where someone still dreamed of the East. Necessity mothers not just invention, but imitation. If you've made it this far, tell me, which dish grabbed you by the collar? Would you try Rattlesnake, the cheese-scented loaf, or Vinegar pie? Drop a comment. I rate everyone with the appetite of a bridge crosser, and if your grandma ever spoke of chicory coffee or salt-rising bread, give this a like so that memory lives another generation. On our last night before the big river, I watched a pigtailed girl set down a gourd of water and, unprompted, share a piece of ash cake with a limping stranger. The piece was small, but the gesture was vast. That's when I understood. The bizarre and the uncommon aren't the items on the plate, but the brave decision to turn what you have into what you need. What keeps us isn't salt, vinegar, ash, or fat. It's the repeated choice to continue. And on this trail, food is the honest way to say, I will. If this story moved you, subscribe, tap the bell, and share it with someone who loves the America born between trails and cast iron pots. Next week, I'll be back with another tale. Maybe about Civil War sweets, maybe about the immigrant kitchens that pushed the country forward with wooden spoons. Until then, keep the fire lit and your curiosity hungry. The West is vast, and the table vaster still.